highs. It's amazing that the White House gets on and touts this economy and this consumer confidence and this inflation thing. I mean, we've got high inflation and we have debt out the wazoo. It's the worst it's ever been. I don't know about the housing market. I'm going to pull that up as we're talking too, but auto credit, let's look at housing.
Yeah. So summarizing again, right? Debt issue. You got national debt issue, consumer debt issue.
Uh-huh.
You got inflation. You've got interest rates at certainly not an all-time high, but still 300% higher than they were
They're very high. Yeah,
only
exactly.
only
Yep.
2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Then you factor in there's multiple countries warring at the same time.
Did you say warring as in at war?
Warring,
Oh
warring
yeah.
at
Oh yeah,
war.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's heating up. It's not getting any better in the Middle East. I mean, I think the last I checked, the US is quietly sending personnel and equipment into the Israel area now. So now they're not only sending to Ukraine, but now they're also putting technically some boots and some weapons on the ground. Well, already they send for weapons in Israel, but now there's Iran closing in on that section, and the U.S. is going to help Israel, right? So
Yeah. So
there
you've
you
got
go.
these are things that people pay attention to. And the most recent stat I looked at was that this was according to the American Psychiatric Association Morning Consult. 70% of Americans indicated they were anxious about the upcoming elections. I also think that number's low.
I do too.
And especially after the assassination attempt, and then obviously, Biden stepping down and Kamala being put in, like,
Ton of turmoil and unsettledness, and just
yeah, what I started talking about in this piece was that when I look back at these different bumps in the road as a business owner, it was very clear for me I could pinpoint one or two specific issues. Right now, there's like 5 or 6.
that's my concern too. It's like a perfect storm of half a dozen of these things, right?
So, what do I think is going to happen? Typically, after a big US election, it doesn't really matter who wins historically. There's this wave of optimism that comes because people at least know there's a leadership, they know what they're going to be dealing with,
That's out of the
and they
way.
can kind of go back to business, and the onslaught stops. The onslaught of fear-based election media for 6 months straight stops as everybody
And
gets to
even if it's
breathe.
just a honeymoon on a not so good candidate, at least that's out of the
Doesn't matter.
way, right? It's that piece is off the table, right? Which I think is important.
Exactly. So I feel like from now till then, with all of these things happening, really rocky. And this isn't just a feeling. Maybe our listeners and viewers know or don't know. I run an agency called 7 Mile Media. We control a significant amount of media spend on a weekly, monthly basis. And so I can see the conversion metrics in all of these different businesses. And over the last year, it's down, but over the last week, it's wild. Like the spikes in buying and selling patterns, or not buying and selling patterns, but buying and not buying. Like, we've been running your media for your company for years, Andrew. And historically, we just know, like, steady Eddie, this amount of sales are going to come in every single day. And right now we're seeing like lots and zero.
Big swings,
Lots
big
and zero.
swings,
Huge
almost like the
swings.
stock market. Exactly.
Yeah, and buying patterns often mirror the markets because markets are a reflection of people's emotional state. And so it's volatile right now.
Yeah,
It's
that's the
and
word. It's a
and
lot of volatility.
I'm going to talk about the things that we're teaching our clients and we're suggesting that business owners do, especially over the next 3 months. But there's really two sides to this equation. If you're a business owner, there's things that you need to do, and then as an individual or as a family, as an investor, there's things that you need to be doing as well. And you tend to spend a lot more time in that space because of your Wall Street background and because of your pragmatism. Let's maybe talk about the investment side right now. How are you viewing this market, and what are you doing to either
Well,
take advantage of it or protect yourself from
yeah,
it?
I think a lot of people are generally only invested in the stock market because they're not investors. So they can easily
Mm-hmm.
have a 401k, an IRA, a fund or something like that. So they're most people are looking out of the corner of their eye at the stock market because they're thinking this is my retirement capital.
Sure.
I don't know how much money is actually invested in the stock market. For US citizens alone, it's probably a massive number. It's obviously trillions. Maybe you can look it up while I'm talking.
I'll look it up.
Right. So how much actual money is invested in the stock market on behalf of the few 100 million US citizens, right? This is just in the US. Forget worldwide. There's plenty of money worldwide coming in as well. So I think people are always looking right there. And I know that you never want to time the market and you never want to try to be in then out, then in then out, then in then out. But like you said a second ago, my concern coming into 2024, not only now, but just coming into 2024 was these storms everywhere, from war to inflation to social and civil unrest. I mean, it's to the border crisis. I mean, all these things add up, and they're a compound effect. I mean, we talk about the debt. The amount of debt that an open border policy is creating alone for America is staggering. I mean, cities are really getting hammered right now in America, and now I'm seeing that that's happening in Europe a little bit too. There's social unrest and outbreaks in riots in Europe. They're doing the same thing. They're pushing this illegal migration thing onto the citizens in Europe. I wasn't aware of it because I really only followed the U.S. These are things that are handicapping society, right? So you have so many things going on that obviously you need to be defensive right now. I mean, if you have I think if you have the liquidity and the flexibility to be able to go to cash, I mean, Warren Buffett's been selling every month, if that tells you anything. Warren Buffett has more cash on hand right now than he's ever had in history. He has something like $100 billion in cash on hand right now. He's been shaving every month. If you look at it's public information because they're public companies. And Warren Buffett is the largest shareholder in like 3 or 4 companies. I think Chevron, Apple, right? So you can see when he sells. And if you look at Warren Buffett, he has been trimming his holdings every single month in 2024.
Interesting.
Right? So I always like to follow the money, look at the money for good or bad. And oftentimes you can see money coming out, right? Now you're also seeing...
I want to interject something there. One of Warren Buffett's most famous quotes is, buy when other people are fearful and sell when other people are greedy.
Yeah, he says buy when there's blood in the streets, right?
Right. So
we're not there yet.
If he's selling off a bunch of stuff to get cash in hand, what that's telling you is he projects a big drop and he wants to come in and scoop up things at a discount.
Perhaps, but he's also 95.
Strategy.
So to take money off the table at 95, you have that going for him as well. As he's not a young guy who needs to be invested at this point. So he might just be trimming allocation because of age. I don't know.
He's
trimming at the top. He obviously sees something he doesn't like, right?
He sees something he doesn't like. I want to go back and answer your question earlier about the money that's in the market. Yeah. 162 million Americans, or 62% of U.S. adults, own stock.
Okay.
The top 1% holds 50% of all the stocks, worth $21 trillion.
There you go.
The bottom 50% of U.S. adults hold only 1% of stocks, worth $437 billion. So total amount, U.S. people owning stocks, $21 trillion, $437 billion.
It's a lot of people exposed.
Yep.
It's a lot of people exposed. We've got interest rates at record highs, inflation at record highs, consumer debt at record highs, auto debt at record highs, mortgage debt at record highs, 2 or 3 wars happening, invasions at the open border policies. I mean, you could go on and on and on and on. And if there was ever a perfect time to not be in it at all and to be cash heavy, it would be now. And I can't think of another time, to your point, Aaron, when that many forces were at play working against us.
Yeah,
now. It'd be a tough. I guess I could go back to the 60s during Vietnam, right, with all that social and civil unrest and the wars but I don't know that we were running up debt like that. We weren't a debt-heavy society at that point. People didn't have 9 credit cards in the 60s, right? It just wasn't a thing.